Most likely to write a rom-com, but it actually turns out as a rom cry, honestly.
That's actually, I can
Right?
totally see that. Yeah. Welcome to Narratives and Nightcaps, books, beverages, and author conversations. I'm Bree, always ready to dive into new fantasy worlds and take a step back in time.
I'm Megan, part critic, always team physical copy, and forever chasing good thrillers and a great plot twist.
I'm Emily, your resident mood reader who thrives on chaos questions and lively book chats.
And I'm Jordan, equal parts heart, humor, and high-functioning caffeine addict. I come with coffee in hand, wine on standby, and a Gilmore Girls quote for every occasion.
Cheers!
Cheers!
Welcome back to Narratives and Nightcaps. She's a New York Times and international best-selling author of young adult fiction, including Reese's book club pick, A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow. Today, I'm delighted to chat with Laura Taylor Namey about her latest release, If We Never End. Hi, Laura.
Hello.
It's so good to see you again. I just feel, I know that this is so strange, but like, it's just so special that I got to meet you in person. And now here we are months later reconnecting. How has life been?
It's been busy. I've got two kids just graduating college that kind of, even though they're not the same age, they're not twins, but because of their individual tracks, they ended up on the same grad track. So we've been super busy trying to get everybody jobs and like grad school and parties and yeah. So, and plus I was on deadline, which I just got off deadline. So yay. If you've seen me teasing my 2028 book a little bit on TikTok, that's what I just turned in. I love it so much. I can't really tell you too much about it right now, but it's done and it's to the editor. So that's what's been going on around here. Nothing much at all.
No, you
No,
just had a really easy, casual, low-key couple of months. That's all so exciting, all of it.
very much. Yeah. Just trying to enjoy it all.
Oh, yeah, you should. And hopefully you can rest too. Enjoy it and then rest, read a little bit before you have to really jump back in. I can't wait to hear more about the 2028 book when the time is right. Can't wait. Before we go much further though, we of course have to kick off the episode with your nightcap pairing. So what beverage do
Okay.
you have for us today?
Okay, I don't have it on me because it's not night. It's 11 a.m. But okay, so here's the caveat. If I drink anything that's like a true nightcap right before, so I'm not getting any sleep. So there can't be any alcohol involved at all past like 9 p.m. for me or 8, or I just don't sleep well. So mine is super boring. Like I love a hot ginger tea. Um,
Yeah.
I know it's just that's something that helps me sleep. It helps me calm down, lowers those cortisol levels from me being like chatting on my online friends and my book people too long and all the screens and all of that. So that's my boring but very healthful nightcap.
We love all nightcaps, the sometimes fun versions and then the also just helpful versions here.
Yeah,
Um, I'm very much working on my tea journey at the moment. So ginger tea is one of my favorites.
good. Yeah, it
That's
cures a lot of ailments too. Figure, yeah.
it does. So yeah, ginger tea, that's been one of my favorites. The one I really have to get on that a doctor is actually trying is spearmint tea.
Oh,
And
really?
so
Okay.
I'm working on that at the moment to be having spearmint tea in the evening.
Oh, I'll have to try that. I think I have mint, but spearmint is like a special
Yeah, I
like
will say I
living
couldn't just find it at my grocery store.
Okay, that's what I'm wondering. Okay.
Yep. So I had to order it. I don't even know what brand I have because I didn't as soon as I found it I was like, well, we'll go with that after I couldn't find it in store. But yeah, so that's the one that I'm working on right now at least. But ginger tea is definitely my favorite. That's a perfect nightcap.
Yeah.
I have kind of a random question for you. What
Okay.
is your book or author superlative? Like most likely to dot 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 or best dot dot dot.
Oh gosh. Okay. Most likely to write a rom-com, but it actually turns out as a rom cry, honestly.
That's actually, I can
Right?
totally see that. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's too good. Well, you just got off deadline and which is I'm sure a relief. Get to have some rest, sleep now. But what does your ideal writing day look like?
Okay. I usually start with like a really good protein centered breakfast for to feed that brain, and a workout. And right now I'm just doing like walking and weight training, a lot of things like that. So one of those things, and I got to get that dog. If I don't walk the dog, nothing's happening because he's very hyper. So we do that. And then I like to get ready and settle in around, between 9 and 10, whatever. Sometimes I'm doing like also TikToks and social media stuff. So I could waste a lot of time doing that, like making those reels and trying to promo and answering reader questions, or chatting with my readers, whatever. That can, if I'm not careful, that really gets away from me. But I try to focus. And I'll write for about, it depends, what kind of day, probably 5 to 7 hours. Usually, I take breaks, but I'll have put in a good full day until about 3 or 4. And my brain is pretty much done around there. So I like to go for another walk, maybe do some reading. Secretly, I love to turn on like the trashiest reality TV known to man, just so that my brain can just get this like whiteboard eraser marker just all over it, right? And scrub everything beneficial I've done and just like that brain candy. I don't know why I just gravitate toward the like weirdest, most drama filled
Like what? Do
trash. Like
tell.
it's not, I don't know. And then I'll start cooking, which really relaxes me, like watching my little shows or listening to podcasts, like your podcast or any podcast, something fun like that, where I can turn my own work off and disassociate. Yay. That's great. And I like to cook dinner, I'll do that. Yeah. And then it's like all TV. Like I like to watch my shows because they do help me with plotting all the
Yeah.
time. So, the husband and I will watch our like shows and hanker down with my ginger tea and all of that, and that is my day. That is exciting, but that's how we get it done.
No,
Yeah.
it's realistic, it's real. I'm not spending 5 to 7 hours a day writing, but I hear you. At the end of the day, yeah, there's the disassociation. I don't know what that says about us, but I always tell my husband, I'm like, I need the shows that I don't have to think about, or the podcasts that I can just listen and I feel like I'm right there with them, and they're going to tell me a story, or they're going to tell me about their life, and I don't really have to think about it. It shuts my brain. My brain can just be there, and I'm not having to think or do a whole lot. So I do the same thing. And while I cook too,
Mhm.
it's a nice day. It's a nice day. And
It
then
really
just,
is. It really
yeah,
is.
settle down with your shows at the end.
Mhm.
That's perfect. Well, what is one writing rule, air quotes, rule that you don't follow?
Write every day. I don't write every day. I write when I want to and when I have to like turn in something. But I hear this like I hear a lot of strange advice that's trying to be helpful, and it's inherently good. Like saying you need to practice and grow your craft, and the only way to do that is by doing it. So writing every day is a great way if you're starting out and you got a journal and you're doing some kind of short form. You're just getting words on the page, but you don't need to. Sometimes writing is more than actually just putting words on the page. Writing is observing, right? And it's living. There's a lot of it's making playlists. It's however you connect to the written word and writing as a whole. That doesn't need to look like actually putting words on the page every day. So give yourself grace. Like when you don't want to write and you just want to read everything else or watch trash TV, that's fine, because it's feeding your subconscious. It's feeding ideas into you that your own brain can then turn and twist into something hopefully later on that will serve you.
Yeah, something that will spark you. You're making me think. I was just talking to Caitlin Hill too, and we were talking about how you have to fill your creative well too. You have to fill your creative cup. And so if you're writing every day and it feels like those sparks aren't coming, that's just as important to focus and to work on your craft too. That's a really good rule not to follow. I agree. Um, what is one book that you will always recommend to any reader?
Oh, The Paper Palace.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that I loved it so much that like it was a huge inspiration for me. It's an adult book and I write YA. Like in the book that I just turned in, I just wanted to play in that playground. And so I'm like, okay, I want to not take on her voice because we don't do that, but it was like a huge inspiration point for me to make something in YA that felt like that book made me feel. So that's one that's just recently like at the tip of my brain. I mean, there's so many. This question is like, what's your favorite child? Or you forget every piece of media you've consumed. I'm like, I don't know books. What books have I read? I have read no books. I know no authors. I know nothing of value. Yeah, that happens to me a lot too. So there's so many, but that one's like at the tip of my
That's a good, gosh, I think we've even like talked about that one on the podcast if I'm going, but same thing. People are like, "Oh, what books are you guys talking about on the podcast?" And I'm always like, "What have I been reading?" I just like blank out for a second and my brain shuts off, and then I have to go look,
yeah.
and I'm like, "Oh, we talked about this and this book and this is going on." It happens. If you paired If We Never End with a song, what song would it be?
Well, you can look on I have done more than that. I published a Spotify playlist
Oh my
that
God.
is kind of like the songs that I it's just If We Never End, and it's like
Yeah.
it'll say official playlist and it's under my name. Like those are the songs. I'm a musician, so that what I was talking about earlier about connecting to writing in different ways, music really helps me to connect to writing and voice and how I want things to feel and sound. So I wanted to make a book that felt exactly like Taylor Swift's Willow. And if you listen to Willow and you read If We Never End, the cadence of that song and the way that I have put the prose on the page are complementary on purpose. And just that feeling of running through the woods, in a white dress, barefoot, chasing after something you don't know, that little like dark visitor that comes in the night, that the mystery, the true love, the unrequited stuff, this creepy forest. You think of that is all the things that I wanted to put into If We Never End because I love those things. I love the way aesthetically they make me feel. So that song, was why I wrote that book when that came out. I'm like, I need a book that makes me feel like this
Just like
song. Yeah. But there are tons of them. There are a bunch of songs in there that are really beautifully fitting to my story and that kind of touched me personally. So yeah, you can go into my musical brain and see, and they kind of follow the plot, like the plot trajectory. So the things that work in the beginning of how my characters are feeling are at the beginning of the playlist. And then as you move through the story, the resolution of what really happens in this book, that's kind of at the end. So yeah, fun.
Oh, I love that. I cannot wait to. I literally pulled it up as we were sitting here, so I
Oh
was
yeah,
like,
it's a good one.
don't
Good
don't
song.
forget. Oh, you did. You like went above and beyond. I love it when there's a playlist. I will say I'm really bad about just being on Spotify. I'm kind of like, I know that makes younger people cringe that I'm like not really. I have it, but I don't typically go onto it unless there's a playlist that I'm like, and I have to go listen to that. So that is next up for me to dive into that. Well, on that note, for readers that haven't had a chance yet to get into the pages of If We Never End, please tell us what the story is about.
Oh yeah. In If We Never End, 18-year-old Cuban American Sylvie winds an enchanted watch, and a boy pops out with no idea who he is or how he died. That is basically, in one line, what If We Never End is about. And yeah, with lots of surprises.
Well, that's exactly what I was gonna say because Laura, my jaw was on the floor.
Yeah, yeah,
um,
I hear that a lot. I get that. I got that message twice yesterday from readers. Yeah, my DMs. They're like, I know. I'm like, yay. Yeah.
Siri, I was just sitting there at one point, mouth hanging open. And at that point I remember thinking, I was like, am I gonna have to talk to Laura and be like, and I'm sending you my therapy bill. This is it. Um, so
Mhm.
the twists, the turns with all of it, I mean, I was just turning the pages
You know
with
how
this
many
one.
times I had to tell, like I was on like a pre-pub tour with like kinds of like library groups and bookstore regional events that I got sent to like take arcs and send them out to all this. Do you know how many times I had to like after I said that and was talking about the book, I had to say it's going to be okay. Like they're like, how is this a romance? I'm like, trust a Cuban, trust me. You're not, it's going to be terrible. It's going to be terrible and it's going to break you in two, but I'm going to put you back together so well. So just if you just stick with me, it's okay, because nothing sounds like it should be okay in this book when you read like the cover copy and when I start talking about it and you learn, what's happening and who the characters are and the situation. You're like, how is she going to do this? Like I had some doubters, some serious, I'm like, this is book 6 for me. Like you've read a lot of my books. Like it's going to be fine. You just got to trust me and you got to stick with it to the end. And I will make it worth the pain, because that's what we do.
I had faith that you were gonna stitch me back up. I did.
Okay.
I had faith.
Okay.
But I don't know. I guess I was going in and just feeling the story along with it. And then yeah, when my jaw dropped, I thought, oh boy, okay, where are we gonna go from here? But I did have faith. I didn't lose faith in you and that you were gonna put the pieces of my scattered puzzle all back together. And you did, but we're not gonna spoil anything
No,
at all
nope, we're
because
not. Nothing
I
happens.
do.
Nothing to see here.
Nope,
Nope.
nada.
Nope.
This story though, is still YA, like your other works. It is a bit different though in style compared to those. So what really inspired you and moved you to create this one?
I wanted to do something new. And I wanted to play with a little bit of magic because I love the contemporary world. But, I've done 5 straight contemporaries at that point when I had started If We Never End, like in 6 years. We're not talking about how I did that because I don't have a good answer for that. We just did that. But I felt like I wanted to bring in some of those really fun spec and romantic-y elements of other books that I like without going like straight high fantasy on that road, because so many people are doing that so beautifully, like really well. I love to read those, and I love what magic can do for a storyteller and what that opens up as far as things being high concept and thrilling. There's nothing like a magical element to really drive a plot, to really add, pain and wonder and a lot of things I can't do in straight contemporary, even though it's just in a contemporary world. So, I moved publishers along with my editor, and this is what I'm doing. I'm out Bloomsbury. This is what I'm doing at Bloomsbury for a while. And these are the things that they want from me and like this type of thing. So the one I just turned in is even more magic. It's still, and it's even more, dreamy and beautiful and fun and terrible, but everything is beautiful at the end. Don't worry. But that, is really fun for me as a creator because we want to keep growing and evolving. And so I get to like take the things I've learned and that my readers like from me. And like my brand elements are all there. So if you like Cuban Girl, and you like British Girl and with Love at Go Park, and you love those like the fun family Cuban stories, like the rom-coms, all of that stuff is in there, but it's like retooled, maybe a little darker with a lot more mystery, with some magic, some things that the characters can't explain, a little more plot forward than, being so character driven. These are really plot and device driven, which again helps me to grow because I don't want to just like sit in a spot and just keep spinning. I want to be like an arrow and go forward, keep learning and growing and trying new things. So that is, If We Never End, is how we did that. And we're still doing that.
I love that. And this might be my own perceptions, but I feel like there was, I don't know if it was a misconception or if it was something within the industry, but for a long time there, at least as a reader, I would hear, oh, authors they have to stay in one lane. Like they can't really branch out of that. That's once they do that, that's what they do and that's what they publish. And I love hearing your perspective and also seeing it now with multiple authors who are branching out and introducing either they're writing in different genres or they're going in a different direction too. And so I don't know if that is like an actual shift. You probably know better than I do, but if it is, it's so encouraging to see because I want that for all of the authors and the voices too, that like you feel just as inspired and want to try something new, even though I think it's so important that like your voice and your identity and all of those core elements are there, but that doesn't mean that you can't branch out and try something totally new and bring this atmosphere to readers too that's been noodling around in your brain.
Yeah, I kind of just asked forgiveness later and just did it. And because I'm like, I'm a creator. And if I'm not a creator, what am I? Like, I get to be creative, I get to play. And if you try to put me in a box, it's not going to go very well because this bird is going to squawk and complain. Like, and I am privileged in the fact that I do have a readership and I did have a lot of trust from my editorial team. They've trusted me more than you can imagine, especially like what I just did when I just turned in, just kind of going rogue, and they let me. And I'm really grateful for that because when someone trusts you, it makes you work harder. It makes you push. It makes you read more, try it, and just hopefully we're doing a good job here. But it's really fun to like have that challenge again and to not be boxed up. And so I would hope that we're not doing that to authors. We're not doing that to anyone. We're letting people be creative because the mind, our minds are weird and wonderful and whimsical. And if we're just like, it's just not good for the brain to do the same thing over and over and over, even if it's a good formula, because tweaking that formula is how you make new brain pathways. It's how you grow creativity and how you grow readership. Because I've noticed for me, just saying that bringing in some romantasy and some spec and some fantasy elements into a straight contemporary has brought me a lot of new readers who just read fantasy. And I've noticed that they pick this up and they like it. And they're like, oh, it's fun, to read something that magic is not only in a high fantasy world, that our world is magical too. I mean, look outside, look at the world outside, look at things that happen in nature. Magic is all around us, I think. So that's a cool perspective to be able to say that. And my readers, they were contemporary readers. They did follow me. They're like, oh, because those brand elements, the way that I do, my love interests, the way that I do relationships and tough girls who need to get over something in order to let go, and vulnerability and food and fun and Cuban culture and Cuban characters on the page being front and center, that never changes and it's never going to change. Yeah. So
I mean, I love that those elements are still so strong with all of it, and then you can really branch out from there too. I mean, that too, but the relatability of your characters. I mean, I was not Sylvie's age, but I could like see myself in aspects of her, and just it was so delightful to read that and be so immersed in the magic and in the whimsical world that you had created, even though it's the real world. But like, I think that is one of the, I'll probably do a horrible job of articulating it, but one of the really brilliant things when it comes to magical realism, and I like high fantasy too. I really do. Sometimes I'm like, give me a brand new world that doesn't exist and a totally crazy magic system. I'm here for it. But something about magical realism too, like you were saying, is it just opens your eyes to the magic that is around us, and it makes you think about like your day to day a little bit differently, and it always sparks like my own imagination and how I approach even the most mundane of tasks in my day to day. And I think that can be really special as a reader once you turn that final page of a story, like If We Never End.
100%. That's exactly why we're doing this. Yeah.
I have to know, did you get emotional while you were writing this one?
Painfully. It was really, really hard, especially, yeah. And, it's funny. I'm a really emotive writer because I feel and I go through the book along with the main character. So in this case, along with Sylvie, because I have to, and in some respects, embody her in order to pull the most out of her. I have to really place myself. I have to embody, her 100%, her heart, her soul, her fears. I have to feel them because that helps me to be able to create these pathways through her arc and everything authentically, that I can't just imagine it. I really have to live it myself. And that's hard because it makes you think of all the times when you were vulnerable and all the times when you felt abandoned or you felt scared of letting go of something, or you felt scared of feeling something, because that's really her biggest issue, that when you feel it and when you acknowledge something, it becomes real. And to take on an identity of something that's ugly is hard for a person, especially an 18-year-old, to say that I am someone who was routinely abandoned, even though it was for a good cause and out of love. It still made me feel bad. It still made me feel and believe things that are not true about myself. So we've all been there, and to some respect, maybe not as deep as Sylvie, but I really had to feel those things. And just like a moment will always catch me, a moment that, and I would hope that if I am like getting emotional if I'm not getting emotional over it, then I'm not doing my job. And I think that's how I know that if it's not hitting me, I'm not done. I put it away. I need to come back. I need to do something to replenish my own well. Maybe I'm just mentally and emotionally tired, and I just want it to be done and not done well. So the key for me, that if it moves me to where I have to take a break, and I'm just like physically emotional over it, then I know that I'm on the right track in that scene. Frankly, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I would say that we then, or at least I feel that as a reader too, which is it's something that I love, even though I was just having this conversation too. I'm the person that will feel it so deeply and be like, and this is fiction and it's okay. And everybody's, this isn't real people. This isn't happening directly to me. But you can just feel that you poured so much of that into the writing and into the scenes and the emotions. And yeah, the loneliness that Sylvie feels in this was just, I mean, it was just heart-wrenching for me, but at the same time is like, so the story is so beautiful when it comes to her arc. Well, without spoiling, I do want to know though, did
Mhm.
you know from the beginning how the story was going to end, or did it kind of piece together?
I've been wanting to write this book before I started it for 5 years. I wanted to do that like hot boy Aladdin trope where like hot person of interest comes out of inanimate object, right? And it's a trope. It's like, and how fun, like you're a girl going off to college and like hot boy appears in your cabin bedroom through, and at first it was a camera. It was going to be a camera, and it was something she found in an antique store. I didn't have the backstory yet, but then I wrote a British Girl's Guide to Hurricanes and Heartbreak, and Flora is a photographer and Baz in those stories. So I'm like, okay, I can't do any more cameras. We need to stop that. So then became a watch, because I love like the element of time is not just the watch, but it's also metaphorical in the book
Very.
so many times. So I just couldn't make it happen. Like I didn't know what was really happening in this book. I didn't know how to piece it together until like woke up. I sat up out of bed one day, and what happens in chapter 24 or 25 in this book was the key that unlocked everything so dramatically. I sat up and I'm like, I did that like when you're like you've been underwater and you take that breath. I'm like, oh my God, this is the story. This is the whole story. And it's the center of like the web of this book, because everything revolves around this point. And I ran to my phone, ran to my critique partners, Joan and Allison, who work with me every day. And I'm like, this is what happens. This is what they're like. Oh my God, that's what happens. My agent flipped out. Everyone is like, this is cool. And so I would say days later, I had a full 20-page synopsis, started writing this thing 2 weeks later. It was done um, in a matter of months, sold, took it, was able to sell it to my beloved editor who had moved houses. Like it was a way for me to come back to her, getting this book. So I had to write the whole thing because I was moving. And, they loved it. And they're like, well, this is what we want from you now. Like this level. I'm like, okay, so this was really hard. Thanks, But yeah, it was just that. It was that simple and that complicated. It was just like one thing. And that's how it is for writers. Honestly, we'll have all these stories in our heads. We'll have all these plots floating around, but they're not really concepts until we get like, it's like two legs of a three-legged stool. You got to have all those legs and they've all got to work together. And there's just one missing piece you need to find, and then it all comes together. So that moment was it.
You had that like download
It was a
moment.
download. It was so much. And it happened again with the book that I just turned in, to where I had another book that I had turned in and I'm like, this isn't the book, the one that's in my head. And they're like, write it. So they held my deal, they held my contract and let me just do that. That's what I was talking about, like
The
the
trust.
grace, the trust and the grace. They're like, this is your best self, is whatever is creating, like, we're going to trust that because we've seen it in action, with this other book. So go ahead and do it again. So I did, which was the best writing experience of my life because it was so overwhelming. And it was like the book was flying out of me like gutturally. I couldn't contain it. It was a monster. I had to write it or it was going to consume me. That is where you want to be as a creator. You don't want to be like spiraling in this, like, okay, I'm going to do another this. And not that that's bad, but my goodness, you want to like wake up and go, I'm so excited to sit in front of the computer and write it and get this down because it's a beast. And that wasn't new for me. I hadn't felt that in a while.
Oh, it's so refreshing to hear. And just also like to hear your love and your passion for it too. And your passion for the story and for writing and just for being so inspired. I know I feel very fortunate that I get to talk like to authors like you and so many others and to hear that from that. But I just hope that other listeners feel that through their headphones or through watching it too, like how important that is and why stories like this resonate and why voices like this make us feel is because of that love and that passion that you have for your idea and for your craft.
Thank you. Yeah, I would hope so. Otherwise, what are we doing? What are we doing?
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, we kind of touched on this, but like not only is this an atmospheric ghost story, it explores those themes of grief, of loneliness, of love, and I say that on a very massive scale. How do you hope readers ultimately feel when they turn the final page?
Oh, I would hope. Okay, because this is for my young readers who are the intended audience, even though I've got 70-year-olds in my box going, I love this story so much. Like it made, so anyone can read this. But a lot of times teens are told this thing that you want is impossible. You can't have that. And they're told so many times, oh, that thing, you can't be a star. You can't be a model. You can't be an author. Maybe you can, you can't. How many times do they hear that? Just stay in your lane. Just want the things that are like right next to you and don't shoot. That's impossible. Don't waste your time on impossibilities. And I wanted to write something that's like this love story. If it's star-crossed. It should be impossible. The universe, the laws of nature say this is not going to pan out for you, Sylvie. You cannot have Penn. He is gone. He's beyond you. You're never going to have him, no matter how much you love him and you're trying to fight that. And what if that's not true? What if you can have that thing? What if you try anyway? And not every time, because some road marks and some signposts are there for a reason because they're just not good for you. And those things are not worthy of your time, and really wasting your time on futile things is not going to get you anywhere, but some are. And you get a sign of like, this sits right with me. And Penn sat right with Sylvie in such a way that she's like, I am not going to accept at the end that this is it. I'm going to take a risk here. And she's definitely not that right away, but at the end she risks everything. And she gets a big payoff because of that. And so, yeah, not everything is a no. Even if the universe says so, even if gravity and physics say so. Yeah, that was really kind of in the back of my mind, that I wanted you to feel that that all things are possible, and not just and from your own magic. What is your own magic that can arise and that you can manipulate the way that Sylvie does to get the things that you want more than anything?
I feel that in my soul. I think that is so definitely so important for teens, but like you were saying, I'm personally in the corner that YA is for just about everybody. I think that people can read it of all ages, and there are so many things that apply to teens that then apply to you later, especially in other transitions in your life, which we all know happen continuously throughout. That is just, yeah, I feel that. I feel that so deeply. I hope that you're transporting me right back into the story and into the pages. And I just want to relive that feeling and that end again, that something wild and crazy could be possible.
Mm-hmm.
Well, before you were an author, on that note too, you were a teacher. Can
Mm-hmm.
you tell me sort of when and how you decided to pursue writing?
Yeah, I was just talking about this to my kids the other day and some new friends who were over, and they're like, "Wait, you taught school?" I'm like, "Not very long, like before you were born, okay?" Like, I only lasted 3 years. That was my degree. And what I realized I liked most about teaching was using all the literature and doing writer's workshop. I taught elementary school, like third grade, first grade. I would make them write, and I would kind of abandon some of the writing text. And I'm like, that's not how we're going to learn to write. We're going to do it. And through doing it and through helping one another, and I would teach them skills obviously, but I just gave them time to write and create whatever you want, whatever, with no parameters. Just write something that means something to you, that you love. And I like that more than actually like being in the classroom. And now I teach adults. I teach adults a lot, often, writing classes online. I'll do that in services, and I really like teaching adults. So it wasn't like the teaching thing. I think it was just like the whole environment of having to be on all day, and that didn't really agree with my work style, my learning style, as much as I had hoped and I thought. But this is another thing I write about in books, is like, you can change your mind. You can change, like, you don't have to do what your degree is. You can change your mind. And sometimes you have to grow into a calling. So I was always a really good writer. I got a lot of training and got postgraduate work in like poetry and short form writing. I never thought I could write a novel until it, and I didn't need to. I was just like this crazy avid reader, and I stopped working entirely, and I raised two kids, and I would read and write short form things just to maintain my level of sanity, because we all know about that. Being home all day and growing these minds, I needed to do something to feed myself and to escape, and while I was still present with them. And so when they were, junior high, late elementary, junior high, that was do you remember the renaissance of YA in those books like Twilight and Divergent, right? Hunger Games. During that time, I saw these preteens and teenagers just like walking with these books in the hallway at school, at my kids' school, and running into the lockers because they would not stop reading these books. I'm like, what is that? And I was reading them too because then my kids wanted to read them. And I'm like, you know what? I want to do this. This is cool. I like these books. These are fun. I used to work with young people. I like them a lot. I understand them. I have two of them in my home. I'm feeding them, growing them every day, and watching all of their drama, the way they talk, the way they move through the world, all of that. And I'm like, hey, I'm going to teach myself how to do this. I didn't have any training besides my short form, like poetry. I did have training in that. But as far as like writing a book that's 300 pages, so I just started. I just got an idea and I started writing, and that book is in a drawer today. It got me so close to getting an agent, but it wasn't perfect, and I'm so glad it never got published, and no one will ever see that book. It gets parted out like a car, like a classic car. Like the muffler goes there and the tires go there. Like, so I have pieces of that book in almost every book that I write, or an idea. So it's not time wasted. Then I finally, like, when I got so close, I got a little training. I went to some classes, did some online classes, read all tons of manuals, read 100 books. Yep. And the book that I wrote after that was my debut, The Library of Lost Things. And that went really fast because like I said, I started late. That, the next year I had that book that got me an agent and sold to HarperCollins in 3 months. And I haven't stopped since. So when it was my time, everything opened, but I had put in the dues. I had, done the work, but it did happen because I just think it was meant to be, but not when I was 22, 24, getting out of school and starting that first job. That was not, a lot of my writer friends are that age. They started at 18, 20. I know I can name a few of them. I was not that person. Cool. It took me longer, but my road did go pretty fast. So, that is how we became a writer. Yeah.
I think It's the story though that I hear from most authors. Most of them aren't in their early 20s publishing their first book. I think that there are some that certainly they just know. They know early on that that's what they're going to do, but most people live a little bit of life before they realize this or decide to test it, explore it, see if they can do it. And I think I don't know, it's a reminder for me. I know this is a book podcast, so that's people are either reading or they're writing in some or both in some way, shape, or form. But to me, it's always a good reminder that like you can change your mind at any point. And then I think I was even seeing recently like the average age that, and don't quote me on this, nobody quote me, it's quote isn't from me. But like the average age that people debut is about 37. But
Yeah.
I've talked with people that have debuted in their 30s, in their 40s, in their 50s, in their 60s. I've talked with people that wrote 10 books that never saw the light of day until one did. And there's something so beautiful and inspiring and refreshing about that like nobody's journey is the exact same, but most people have had a little bit of life before this happens. And so I love to uncover that and know like what it looked like for everybody. I think it's so special that each one is like a snowflake and they're all so different and they're so unique, but then are just changing the world with their stories and their literature and the life that they've lived that then they decide to put into book form. It's so cool. So thank you for sharing that. What do you enjoy most about writing young adult fiction?
I think it's connecting to like resolving some of the things that I still carry from my young adulthood. A lot of times, like my book, A Cuban Girl's Guide to Teen Tomorrow, is like basically, it was a love letter to my family. It was also a love letter to unresolved things with relationships that I had that I didn't know that I needed to close until I started. So I love to do that. I love the immediacy and the immediate storytelling of YA because the genre, the age group demands that you get everything on the page quickly, that you move quickly, and its story is central. And I love that a lot. I love firsts. I love coming of age. I love that cusp of, especially, I write upper YA, so my characters are not 15 and 16. Some people are doing those stories so beautifully. It's not the space that I'm most myself in. I love writing the 18, 19-year-old who has graduated and or is like, I do a lot of summers. You notice like before senior year, after senior year, even first year of college, like some of the love interests are 20, 19, a little bit older, like that. Okay, so I've learned all these things and where am I going next? And I've learned some things that are not always great. And if I want to, progress, then I need to get over those things. I need to work through them before I can really come of age. And I like that space.
It sounds very cathartic.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything that has surprised you about your career as an author? Like good or bad? Hopefully good, but what have been some surprises?
How much marketing I'd have to do on my own? I'm sure you hear this a lot. Like we have to, I'm like, oh, I didn't know that I had to become a TikTok specialist and a graphic designer and, like a dancer and like, wear all these hats and which is fine. We've embraced it, but I didn't know that that was part of the job. But let me tell you, it is.
It is. I see that a lot online that people are surprised by it. I hear that a lot too. And yeah, and social media, oh, that's such a bigger topic. It has so many amazing things when it comes to the book community, and then just also the pressure that puts on any creator too it can be immense and so unhealthy at the same time too. So like I always see both sides of the coin. I think that I hear from people, they're surprised they have to do it, and then on the good side of it, people are surprised at how much the book community online and social media wants authors to succeed. And so that is like one of the amazing things for all the negative things that social media does and has done. One of the amazing things that I love to see is how readers will come together to totally amplify other authors and lift them up. So I think it is very daunting to authors, especially new authors, when they think, oh, and now I need to become the TikTok expert, and now I need to be on Bookstagram too. And if I had anything to add on to that, it would just be to know that there are so many readers that want to see you do well too, or that want to lift up your books and lift up your writing. But yeah, that would be a surprise for sure. A Cuban Girl's Guide to Tea and Tomorrow has been adapted to film. Fans are anxiously
Oh gosh.
awaiting the release. If you can share anything about the film, but more importantly, I want to know what it's been like to be a part of that adaptation process.
It was so long ago, and I like it. It was like bananas. It was like such a big and emotional time for me because I didn't know anything about Hollywood. I didn't know how these things worked, and everything was a surprise. So I really didn't get to be as involved as you think. I did to get to go on set, but I didn't have any input in the script or anything like that. So being able to trust, Ace Entertainment and all of their sub creators, like to do that was big and also an honor for that. Yes, it is taking forever because it needs to find its home. And after the strike, things changed so much that it's in this business spiral of weirdness right now. It is not canceled. It is ready to go, but it's trying to find, like, they're trying to put it in a distribution deal, and those take forever. So I feel terrible for the fans because I have seen the movie. I got to give notes. They've done, reshoots, and not reshoots, but like dubbing and edits and all of that. And it's so cool and so fun. It's beautiful. And I want everyone to see it. So I get asked daily, like, why aren't you telling anything to us? It's not fair. And I'm like, this is not my project. Like, I can
Yeah.
control the book and the publishing aspect, but this is not me. And I'm kind of that middle point person. That's the only person that they can vent to. And while I understand it so much because they did put out a lot of hype, and then it's like, well, we're waiting so long. And I genuinely just feel so bad about that, but there's really nothing I can do but wait. And so hopefully it's soon.
I don't want you to feel bad. I was just curious. I was like, that
Yeah.
had to be, and even, yeah,
Yeah.
that world is very different from publishing. And there are a lot of moving pieces that you have no control over, that many people have no control over. But I was just so curious about like what it had been like, and
Yeah.
hopefully despite all of that and the length of time, hopefully when the time comes, like it's still exciting for you.
Oh, yeah.
And was a cool experience regardless
It
when
was
all of that was
amazing.
taking place. That's
It was
cool.
surreal. It was like every emotion at once. It was like having to give up some control because as writers, we get to control everything, and until your editor gets in there. But like, I think people have to understand the book and the movie are two different mediums, and they're going to be two different stories sometimes. And that's true here. And so for me, it was hard to have to see things not be included and other things that I didn't write be included. And that happens very, very frequently in adaptations. But just like to see, or, Kit Connor play Orion Maxwell and Maya Rafiko play Leela was just like being out of my body and looking at this like is wild. This is amazing to see, to like the characters I truly love and I created with all my heart, like especially those two. They're always going to be my favorite. They're always going to be very close to me because of what the story is as far as my family, because a lot of it is true. It's always going to be sit in a really like special place inside of me that they got to be played and honored by real people with immense talent. And just to see them like in 3D is just really, really beautiful and really, really fun for me.
That makes my heart just so
Yeah.
happy for you too. That is what a surreal, incredible experience. In addition to your writing, because like we said at the beginning, you've got nothing going on. You're just not busy whatsoever. But you are also the co-host of the Darling Killers podcast. For
Yep.
listeners, especially those who are aspiring writers, what can they expect on that show?
Well, they expect like how you work with a group. And we try to teach emerging creators and just any kind of creator what it could look like to work in a collaborative group and push each other the way that we do. Because Joan and Allison, my critique partners, if you go to the Darling Killers on Instagram, you can see our pictures and watch some clips. We've been together for almost 10 years and we've got like 15 plus books between us published or in contract. It's a lot of words. We've been through a lot of things. And I think the way that we work in our group is pretty rare. It's different. So we like to share really practical things about the industry and about working with others, about how to take edits. Like we even have episodes about grammar and how to do dialogue and how to do stage directions and how to navigate, how to get an agent and how to what really is behind the pen. Like we tell it as it is, but we don't like to be hopeless. So we like to infuse our discussions with hope and navigational tools that can really make the difference in your expectation level and what you're given and how you manage that. It's just managing expectations. That's all we do as authors a lot of the time. You expect things to be a certain way and they don't turn out that way. So we just give you really practical day-by-day tools that have kept us sane. We share those. And our episodes are really short. They're like 30 minutes, 25. You can walk the dog and listen to one. We're comedic. We tease each other. And if you listen long enough to the whole season, we just put out a whole season 1. The way that we razz each other and the way we know each other and play, be playful and silly. And I think it brings a level of humanness to something that is very black and white on a page and very daunting to someone who just says, I want to be where you are. I want to have that. I want to have a book on the shelf at Barnes & Noble or in your local indie. And we genuinely will teach you how to the best we can without, you've got to have the talent and the workflow and you've got to do the work, but we will give you some shortcuts that we used or didn't use and wish we'd had. And that's what the Darling Killers is about. Just, cutting the excess and being tough on yourself. If you're ready to hear some hard truths and be tough, we're not going to sugarcoat anything. We're going to make you work and we're going to make it hurt a little bit because it does. But it's also going to be filled with hope and humor.
So if you have the discipline and the passion for it, that is for you because you are
100%.
and I love that they are like 30 minutes. It makes me think we love to talk about sometimes books have Cheeto chapters. Your podcast is like Cheeto chapters on how to do it.
Mm-hmm. That's what we wanted. That was our goal. So lots of editing.
I love that. Yeah, gosh, that would be so hard. I think about our conversation sometimes, and to edit that down to 30 minutes would be a task. It would be quite the challenge.
It's totally different because we're talking about a variety of topics and we're having a conversation that, is just centered on my career and your responses to it and what you bring as a reader. This is like way more craft driven and way more like educational and situational. So our episodes are highly there's a topic. Like today we're going to talk about why we read. Today we're going to talk about what happens when you get an edit letter. And you really don't need to do that for an hour. We like to just make it just like a book that is overwritten. We don't like to be overwritten. We like to give you something that doesn't overwhelm you. That's like, here's the truth. Here's the issue. Here's the solution, or here is the start of that solution, because sometimes we don't have it, but we just give you thinking points and ways to like survive that when you don't have the answer. And that doesn't need to be an hour, so yeah, it's just our own brand element.
That's so fantastic, though. I can't wait to dive into more episodes of it, and I love all the clips and stuff that you guys shared. Those
Thank
are
you.
so perfect. Just to give you a little teaser of what to expect in the episode. Well, you told us you've submitted your next one, 2028. I don't know that you can share any more than you already have, but are there any themes or types of stories, tropes that you still know you'd like to explore as an author?
Hmm. That is such a good question because I feel like I don't know if I go trope fishing. I don't really do that. I think it's more that something will hit me and I'll run with it. And it's not like, oh, I have to do, the next one I will tell you is more of like a childhood friends to lovers, which I haven't done so much yet. Kind of British Girl has that a little bit, but this is going to be way different because that magical element is going to really mess things up bigly. So it's a way and I also wanted the tease. I always wanted to do an amnesia story, but most amnesia stories um, are not scientifically or medically accurate because most people, what I wanted to do in this story is it would be really rare for that to happen medically. And I don't like to write things, even if I'm writing a fantasy element, that are like, that wouldn't happen. Like just to spend so much disbelief scientifically. Even though wait till you see what I've done. But this was a way using a magical element in a speculative element that I was able to do both of those things in the way that I want to and in kind of a way that I hadn't seen done yet. Maybe it is cool, but just the way that I did it was really fun. So expect that the book will sit right next to If We Never End on the shelf. So it's that if you liked If We Never End, if you liked the storytelling elements, you liked the way it made you feel, this one is not as like twist driven. This one is more relationship driven but it does have a lot of surprises. So if you love surprise and you love to like not know what's really happening, if you think you really know what's happening but you don't, you're gonna like this. So it was a good extension. It was a good next book after If We Never End, and I hope everyone loves it as much as I do. We'll see what my editor does. So
Well, I for one can't wait. And for everyone that does want to follow along so that they can see all of your updates, know when you're dropping more information and little teasers, where is the best place for them to connect with you online?
Oh, yeah. I'm on Instagram at Laura_Namey. You can go to my website, laurataylornamey.com, and that has all of my social media links. I'm on TikTok, Laura Taylor Namey. Please, you send messages. If you ask something, I try to respond to you. Not through DMs so much, but if you write a comment about something and I will respond to you. I do have a fan mail form too if you want to write something. I get a lot of mail like something made you feel about readers who want to tell me their experience after they read my book, what happened in their real life or how something affected them, and those really make my day. So please never be afraid to reach out and talk about anything like that. I'm happy to engage with you. That's really special to me and very rewarding. Yeah. If you want to check out the Darling Killers, we have an Instagram for that, just the Darling Killers podcast. And Darling Killers podcast is on Spotify and Apple. And like I said, we have an Instagram. We link things from my personal Instagram too. So give that a listen if you want to hear more, practical tools on writing.
Absolutely. And I will link to all of that in the podcast notes to make it very easy for everyone to connect with you and to find the Darling Killers podcast as well. Laura, thank you so much for taking this time with me today, sharing your love and your passion and everything that went into If We Never End, all of the insights to creating this moving, poignant story for readers, for myself. Your voice and all that you bring to the book community is just so inspiring, and I feel very grateful to have had this opportunity to talk with you about it more.
Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Thanks so much for listening. The Narratives and Nightcaps podcast is a production of The Craft Co. with intro music created by Remington Haynes.
Subscribe to the show on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow at Narratives and Nightcaps on Instagram or visit our website, narrativesandnightcaps.com.
Sign up for our newsletter to always know what we're reading next, which authors are joining us on the show, and for extra bookish and beverage info.
Connect with our additional co-hosts, Jordan and Emily, as well.
You can find me on Instagram at Cozy Reads and Sips.
And you can find me on Instagram at books.bottles.
Cheers!
Cheers!